And they've paid down now on the barrels of oil that can be produced in a single day to 2 million barrel of oil a day. So there will be shortage, and this is bound to affect and exacerbate already a worse situation as far as global prices are concerned of oil and fuel. We're eagerly waiting for Friday as well. Today it is 11th, so we know April normally revise their prices on Friday or the 15th or the 14th therein. So we will see. Will it maintain the same prices that we are right now, or that is meant also to be rising? Ronaldo hailed for solo entry to 700 club. You can follow that story inside the Standard this morning. Backstabbing, mistrust held up Kibaki Raila cabinet naming. This is a book serialization there that you want to follow inside the Standard this morning. And be realistic with Kenya Kwanzaa 100 days. There is an analysis there. Be realistic with Kenya Kwanzaa fast days. That is the first 100 days, I should say. You can follow that story inside the Standard. This is how it looks. The Daily Nation is holding this splash for us. Pay cuts loom in Ruto budget plan. No salary benefits such as allowances, including entertainment and travel and various non-essential expenditures, will be reviewed for the CHOP starting this morning as the Treasury moves to effect President Ruto's directive to save 300 billion shillings from this year's budget. This story well fleshed out for us on page 6 and 7 of the Daily Nation this morning. We have 300 billion shillings. That's the key figure there. During his inauguration, President William Ruto directed Treasury to cut the 2022-2023 budget by this amount. Now, lobby warrant Bushero sent to jail for contempt. Civil rights group wants outgoing cabinet secretary for ICT, Innovation and Youth Affairs jailed for allegedly disobeying a court order on the appointment of ICT Authority CEO. You can follow that story on page 11 of the Daily Nation today. And just maybe to take you back on the headlining story there, you have a breakdown on the leading non-essential spenders that has been itemized here for you to see. From the National Assembly, we have the Parliamentary Service Commission, especially on travel. Almost 20.1 billion shillings. That is a tidy sum of money that is just stashed away for travel. We have IBC, 1.75 billion shillings. We have Interior, 1.46 billion shillings. Presidency itself, almost a billion on travel. That is what they need to pare down on. There is hospitality in the presidency. I want to talk about all those flowers, the tea, the mandazis. They're all stashed in there. Now the presidency gobbles up 1.4 billion shillings just on hospitality. And we have IBC also getting a tidy sum of money on hospitality. We wonder what hospitality it does during the 5 years tenure, and it's stashing a lot of money on that. Maybe that will be, it will make sense when it really goes to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. We have as well, we have the Judiciary, 426 million shillings. National Assembly, 206.1 million shillings. Treasury, 369 million shillings. There is also training, and we shall look with this. We shall look at this with our panelists this morning. India destination of choice for Kenyan patients, says report. Follow the story on the page 10 of the Daily Nation. Medical tourism in India. Now impunity. Alama's new buildings rise again on repairing lands. That is on page 12. Find out where maybe you're living, if it's a repairing land or not, and why is it Utamaduni, I should say. Why it is Utamaduni Day and not Huduma Day. My panelists are laughing. They're laughing at me. This is not ripping off my tongue easily this morning. All right, let's see what we have on the front page of Star. This man, Farouk Kibet, the total man in Ruto presidency, the former Warang councillor, undoubtedly wields immense power in the new administration. This is what we have on the front page of the Star this morning. You can follow his story on page 4 and 5 of the Star. And President roots for removal of Kenya-Tanzania trade barriers. Is all about bilateral ties. He was in Uganda, also he was in Tanzania. We eagerly wait for his done today in the country. People Daily, Ruto, open up EAC for trade. That is a splash. This is all about shuttle diplomacy or economic diplomacy. President who's Ethiopia, Uganda, and Tanzania in whirlwind tour to push economic case for cross-border business. This is on page 4 of the People Daily this morning. And this is what he said. This is an emphatic signal that the African unity of our time has come of age. A continent united by opportunity and a pan-Africanism driven by trade. That is a story that you want to follow on page 4 of the People Daily this morning. Farouk Kibet, the power behind the throne. Also inside the People Daily this morning. Obama ally, 2 others win Nobel. You can find who they are on page 16 of the People Daily this morning. And here is a picture related to the splash this morning on the front page of the People Daily. We can see President William Ruto meeting with the President of Tanzania there, shaking hands, and issue raised at talks from this tour we had on goods. EAC countries urged to remove trade barriers by adopting borderless community. That is a story you want to follow. Also, gas pipeline, the start from Dar es Salaam and later to Nairobi. This will lower retail cost of energy, also on peace and food prices as well. I think it's a good point for me to hear from my panelists as well, as I try and show you other pages as well. Just try to reconnect with my system here so that I can continue to show you what we have on the other dailies as well. Looking at the East African, Taifa Leo, Business Daily, and also other international dailies. As I mentioned, if you're joining us this morning, I'm holding court with Kipruto Arab Kirwa. Also, we have Senator Dan Mazo, and we do have with us as well as the Komora, just to hear from them this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, thank you. Let's just begin with you, Mheshimiwa, so far. How did you spend your, is it Utamaduni Day? Are you caught up in that confusion, or is it Huduma Day?
I thought it was Utamaduni Day.
Utamaduni Day.
Yes. Yeah, and I spent it here in Nairobi.
Yes.
I did not have a lot of work to travel out of town. So I was just mainly not indoors, but within the compound.
Yes. Okay. Within the compound.
Yeah.
All right. But of course, you followed, or maybe the proceedings that were there in Kololo, Uganda as well. Looking at the East African integration, just we had the president making his maiden trip in Uganda as, of course, the president, and in Tanzania.
I followed keenly, and I did so because of a number of reasons. One, these borders, despite our colonial heritage, were artificially fixed by the British, in our case, and also to a certain extent the Germans, when they did the partition of Africa. And therefore, for us as a people, I feel there is a lot we share in common with our brothers and sisters of the region of East Africa. The second issue is that personally, I spent my formative years in Tanzania between 1962 and 72.
Yes.
And part of what I inherited from my father was built from the savings he had in Tanzania, because in the 40s and 50s, there was a serious relocation of Africans from the prime lands for purposes of opening borders for the British soldiers who had just come from the Second World War. And some of us did not have the fortune of occupying our prime lands in Uasin Gishu and Nandi. We were relocated to Tanzania, and therefore Tanzania is our second home, and anything that opens borders with Tanzania and Uganda is very useful. Third, on the economic front, we stand to gain as a people of Kenya, because there is a lot that we can get. The land issue in Kenya has been a serious problem. In Tanzania and Uganda,
yes,
the land is not as competitively sought after like in Kenya. And you'd almost know in the middle of Kampala, if you are to take an acre of land and you compare with the CBD of Nairobi, it will be almost 10 times as expensive in Kenya than in Uganda. So there are still opportunities for Kenyans to go to these countries and make good investment. And in the process, there will be technology transfer and expertise transfer to those countries of the region. And that's the only way we can do business as a people of Africa and the people of East Africa. So these are gestures that we would want to encourage any leader, be it in Tanzania, Kenya, or Uganda, or even Rwanda. There is a lot more we can gain by having seamless borders with our people of the region.
Thank you very much. Dan Mwanzo, you were in Uganda yourself, and we saw also what was happening in Kololo, looking at the stadium. There is a precaution right now. People were not really allowed to come and celebrate the occasion there, celebrating the 60 years of independence because of first, the restriction of the Ebola. But you could give us a sense and feel and flavor of how it was. How did you find it? How dramatically different is it from ours? I know next year we shall be celebrating 60 years as well as a country. So I think that is just a bellwether of what is coming for us as well.
There was a lot to learn on the Kololo Hill function. First, there were 5 presidents visiting Uganda, East Africa coming together, and even the Secretary General of Eastern African Cooperation was there. And you will find that the future of our economy is how the Eastern African countries work together. And this spans now from Indian Ocean to the Atlantic Ocean with the joining of DRC Congo. So it's true there was a Ebola scare, but thank God the Ugandan government had contained Ebola to 150 kilometers away, and COVID is still a threat. And that's why the public was not allowed to attend the function, but to follow it on television. But there is quite serious presence of the military, and the function was very good, and the flag was raised again, marking the 60 years of the independence of Uganda. But several things are common to us. There is generally a challenge of climatic change in the whole of East Africa. Even in Uganda, the rains delayed, as is not the practice. Although a day before the 60th anniversary, there was a lot of rains in Uganda. But that shows you what is happening. You see, Uganda as a country has rain all over the country, and it's very green, and they farm, and therefore, unlike us, they've got a lot of food. So when we don't have food here, we can be able to get food from Uganda across the borders through businessmen, and we can be able to feed East Africa from Uganda. So, the trade ties are very important, and you can see that there's a lot we can do as Eastern African Cooperation. There are quite a number of things yet to be done to make sure that there is flow in the borders, and that trade really goes across the borders of the regional East Africa and the extended East Africa. And you can see this cooperation is growing. President William Ruto was received very well by Ugandans. There has been a very good relationship between him and the President of Uganda, and I believe that is going to improve our trade. There is, Uganda being a landlocked country, relies a lot on the port in Mombasa and the business activities which go on here. You can see they have made, also they have an expressway. Like ourselves, which has eased movement between Entebbe, where the airport is, and the capital city, Kampala. So I believe trade-wise, a lot is expected of the 3 original countries and the larger region, and we believe trade will really go on, and quite a number of investors, invest in the 3 countries, hotels, business, tourism, and most important, security of in the capital cities. Lack of security really threatens trade, and you can see there are ties to make sure that there's proper security in the greater Eastern African region. So we look forward to greater integration, and that's what the governments are working on, and I believe trade is going to improve in a great way. But the biggest challenge is climatic change. For all of us, really, something has to be done to to get back the climate to where it used to be. And this is through obviously through tree planting. We are losing a lot of trees all over East Africa, and it's a high time all the governments in East Africa really looked at redoing the forest so that we can restore the good climate. I thank you, Diba. So it's we look forward really to trade, more, to have trade of the Eastern African countries, open borders, movement of goods and services, and more importantly, making sure that climatic change, we work as governments to make sure that we restore the climate of East Africa, and I'm sure this is to a greater extent to all nations, so that the loss of ozone layer and the lack of the pollution
is a reality.
It's a reality.
Yes, thank you very much. Let's just hear from Isaac Mora. Thank you for joining us this morning as well. And looking at just the past week, very heightened activity that we had in Parliament, if you were following as well. And also just over the weekend, the President being in Uganda and Tanzania, meetings with some of very influential, leaders here in the East Africa. I don't know what you take. We shall discuss as well. I saw your face splashed somewhere on the front page of Taifa Leo. Among some of the people that, yes, will be maybe appointed in some of, government's position as well. But let's just begin from there.
Yeah, I think that one is for the appointing authority. I was equally surprised to see their face as well. But I also got caught up in the confusion of, did you say Hutumade?
I can tell you. Yeah, like not rolling off the tongue easily as well. Just
Utamaduni Hutumade.
Yeah, maybe it is a good coinage.
It's a good coinage for
Utamaduni and Huduma.
Huduma. So I think that confusion needs to be clarified. But I've read some of the stories on the same. I think it's Utamaduni Day. We can say that because I actually updated my social media accounts Huduma Day, then Utamaduni. Then I was reminded it's Huduma. Then I had to change later on, and I think it's clear.
Isn't it gazetted?
It's now Huduma. It's now. It's
gazetted as what?
Utamaduni.
Utamaduni Day.
Yeah, I think in 2020. From the story that I read, that is it's because they said that you couldn't rename Boxing Day to Huduma Day to Utamaduni, so you have to have one of them, and that is now Moi Day, because Odunga ruled that Moi Day was never done away with. We just need to rename it as per the Public Holidays Act. So I think that's important, but it needs to be properly celebrated. I don't know whether you're supposed to do your Utamaduni in your house. There should be some kind of public, exposition of our traditional, pathos and ethos. But having said that, yes, I think Tanzania is very critical in our market. And I'm very, very happy because President William Ruto is focusing on Africa. In terms of the East Africa, he's already been to Uganda. He's now in Tanzania. And I'm sure Rwanda, you remember all of the 5 East Africa, is it 5 now or 7 or 8? All of them came during the inauguration. So we are moving very well, including the new kid on the block, Congo DRC, so that then we have nearly 200 million people in this jurisdiction. That's a very huge market, because if the Bali are selling a piece of some matchbox to 200 million people, then that's big business. And of course the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, which I like to call ACOFTA, is also a very good game changer.
Why ACOFTA is?
Yeah.
Isn't it AFCFTA?
Africa Continental Free Trade Area. ACOFTA. So I like ACOFTA. It's easier to say that because there are so many free trade areas, in the whole of the world. So you have 1 billion people, and if the 21st century is for China, I believe the 22nd century should be for Africa. 1 billion people, but if we do not, focus on our trade relations, then India or Brazil will take over. So we have to be the people who will, really rise in this century. It is projected that Kenya is likely to be the biggest economy in about 20 years in sub-Saharan Africa. Of course, there's a lot that needs to be done internally, and one of the things that you can also see in the papers is a reduction of our expenditure. We cannot be borrowing 900 billion shillings every year just for recurrent expenditure. We should have a recurrent surplus, not a deficit. And that I think is a very serious engagement. And going forward, of course, we have to make our forward integration or backward integration of our value chains very important. You remember also, President Ruto has just he launched a consignment of tea to Ghana. You see, that for me was very symbolic in terms of ensuring that then we remove this idea that we cannot trade between African countries, and we cannot also have processed products, not just taking raw materials to industries in the West. And of course, we are seeing the emergence of huge conglomerates in Africa. If you look at the Dangote Group, I just use that as an example. I mean, and they have 10 very huge investments, an African-led, investment. So we are seeing the emergence, of a very critical business class of people. Of course, our former regime, which we promulgated without gusto, was bringing down the Humphrey Kariukis, the Tavida Karanjas, and such other local entrepreneurs, because our local economy has not really produced such big companies in the last 10 or so years. So we believe that then we shall see the emergence of huge entrepreneurs and businesses in the private sector, so that the government is not just the only employer of people. I mean, that's what we need to do. These hustler businesses, through Hustler Fund and also the attendant attraction of foreign direct investment and capital, will ensure that we do so. But that cannot be attained if we do not have, we don't have to deal with non-tariff barriers.
Thank you.
Those are some of the things that we need to look at.
Thank you, Isaac. Glad it's most really good to see you. Yeah, it's been a while. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Yes,
Last week also was a busy day for you in the National Assembly. Of course, we saw you holding very well your new position, shaking into place as well. How does it feel so far? No, we just need to congratulate you. We're happy for you.
I feel like I'm in class 1 again. It seems every time I keep changing jobs. I've never done the same job any time in my life, and so you've
also been very privileged to be in all the arms of government.
A total public servant. So it's a learning experience, having to meet the members of staff in Parliament, just getting to understand what I should be doing and how to manage the House, and then
it's such a
it's totally new.
Yes, it's totally new for you.
Yes.
Yeah, but at least looking at it, you could tell that it's a new experience for you, because I think you did it very well.
Thank you.
Also sitting in, so we want to thank you so much also for joining us this morning. But just looking at last week, after issues that are happening as well, what was your highlight? You could say from the House. We had that debate of also majority and the minority leaders as well, and that has been now done and dusted at the chagrin of Azimio. How was it on the floor of the House for you?
I think anybody who has read the law, it was a no-brainer decision. It was very clear what the law was and what the ruling of the Speaker would be. So just the difficulty was when I saw the reaction by other members of the House, and for me, I couldn't understand. I wasn't sure whether they truly believed that the ruling could have been any other way, or was it because they were just creating drama. So it was amusing watching it. But of course, with politics, and you understand that people, you also have to, you say, I've taken this position, I don't agree with it. It's important for your supporters to see that. And yes, that's what happened. But I'm glad that it's behind us, because the House needs to move. There's a lot of work to be done in this country. Kenyans have such high expectations. So you want to get over with that ruling, have the leadership in Parliament in place, and so people can start working, because currently it's just myself and the Speaker who are the leaders in the House we didn't have at the National Assembly. So when everyone comes in place, the Speaker's panel is fully established, the chairpersons of committees are also elected, and all the committees populated, then the work of Parliament can happen. Because actually majority of the work of Parliament is done through the committees. So without the committees, not much can happen. There is the upcoming confirmation hearings of the cabinet secretaries.
Yes.
Again, that is mission critical for our country to move on. And as you see, the plan for the new government is to be very deliberate about what they want to do. In the past, maybe what I can say is Kenya has always they have been dealing with brick and mortar. So if you give the example of a hospital, the first term governors, what they did is built hospitals, just the walls, but the service. Now we need to get to that stage where the service gets to the people. You can go to a hospital and spend 3 hours and you still come out without treatment or a proper diagnosis. So that is important. We look at some of the deliberate decisions. We know we are facing famine. The price of unga is still high, but the long-term decision and more sustainable decision is to say, let's subsidize fertilizer, increase the production, then the price will naturally come down. So it's a new move to impact the livelihoods of people, not just to undertake programs, to actually impact the livelihoods. And the impact, it's not going to be instant. We'll have to tighten our belts. It's going to be a difficult time for probably for the next 100 days to 12 months. But Kenyans will begin to see the fruits of some of the decisions, in a year's time. And I think it's one thing that we must preach to Kenyans, that be patient. It's the pain is not going to go away immediately. It will with time, but in a more sustainable manner. Because you can decide subsidize fuel, subsidize this, and after a while you can't. It's not sustainable, and you're back to square one.
All right. So this is what actually is on the front page of the Standard this morning. The hustlers miss out on Ruto's 30-day boon. Where it says, whereas friends and loyal politicians have been rewarded by appointments from the legislature to the executive, 30 days down the line, Monanchi is still experiencing tough times. Drought is ravaging the country, fuel prices are at an all-time high, and cost of living just got worse. And this is what we're being told. But Gladys, just be amazingly patient. Of course, things...
I think I'll be requesting, I think probably we need to have a better discussion. I think there used to be the meetings with the Editors Guild and so on.
Yes.
And just to say, we need to begin to continue to preach hope, because I would have liked to see...
Or the headline.
No, the headline I'd like to see is this is the plan of the new government. And if they do the following, then they should be able to calculate, even to say the price will have gone down by month that, or day that, and so on. So they can actually project that it's painful here, but with time it's going to get there. And maybe I'd be happy to get people to sit with them and explain to them, so that you're also not misleading Kenyans by expecting that something will change in 30 days. Even a supplementary budget has not even been brought to Parliament. You know that, because there's no committee to look into the supplementary budget and actually implement it. So nothing has actually began to be actioned.
All right, so you're talking about a business committee or the House committees. We know this week, even today, Azimio now will be meeting they'll have the parliamentary group meeting, and this is just also to decide on who are the key figures that will be in these committees as well. You've not selected Kenya Kwanza's day on when they are meeting. We know Azimio is today. Today's Tuesday, right? Kenya Kwanza, we have no certain idea when you guys are meeting.
We did have a 2-day retreat in Naivasha. And all that business was resolved.
It was resolved already?
A second time, yes.
Okay, so you're not meeting this week. Was that a parliamentary group meeting, or it was just meeting everyone?
There will be a meeting maybe just to finalize the discussions. But in terms of the discussions about the committees, that was already begun, and actually...
It's in the process. All right.
And processed, actually.
And
it's a matter of announcement.
It's a matter of announcement. Okay. Mheshimiwa, you want to comment on that? There's a meeting as well, or we just leave it to there's no parliamentary group meeting?
Well, yeah, you can. I can defer to him.
Okay, defer to him. Okay. Does he listen?
I'm aware there's a parliamentary group meeting today, and the main idea is you know now things have settled that we are in the minority in the House, and therefore there has to be a minority leadership, which is very crucial in keeping the government of the day on toes. And as Honorable Gladys has said, you have business takes place at the committee level, and the committees have chairs ordinarily who come from majorities, because an election is conducted to make sure that you have the chairman of the committees and the vice chairman and the membership. So that constitution of membership is usually done by political parties, and names have to be nominated. You see, after the House started, the next thing is to organize the committees and the membership of the committees, and that is done at the political party levels or the coalition levels. So I understand the Kenya Kwanza ones, they are already sorted, and therefore by this morning, Azimio will also get the committee's names presented according to interests of members, so that if you are a member who is interested in the oversight committees, agriculture, according to your expertise, so that you can be able to contribute very importantly during the committee deliberations, because that's where most of the House activities take place, and then by the time they come to the floor, either the committees have agreed on a certain way, or there are still objections in a certain way, so that you can be able to have the government of the day properly checked, and also the business of the House move with the contribution of members and having participated, so that by the time you come to the floor of the House, and one of the most important things now is the budgets, the supplementary budgets are very, very important to make sure that the economy is jump-started and the country gets moving in the aspirations of government which has been formed, and that there can be proper checks and balances posted by the House and the participation of the House to make sure that we get Parliament moving. The Parliament is a very crucial part of government, whereby you have to approve the supplementary budgets. You have to approve what is going to go to the counties, and you have to approve how the reorganization of budget is going to be. So this calls for debate first at the committee level and at the House level, and then of course voting is done. So I believe as mayor will have a proper team to check the government of the day and to make sure that whatever happens has thoroughly been discussed and critiqued, and we believe through that Kenyans are going to be served better.
Thank you. All right, let's hear from Mheshimiwa, and also critically, I don't know what you've picked up from the conversation. Maybe you can also highlight what you saw last week. But before I go to my question, you have anything that you wanted to add, first of all?
Well, I think the premise of our discussion is based on the fact that we still lack political hygiene.
Political hygiene?
Yes, we lack political hygiene in the sense that there were a number of agreements that were signed prior to the election. And it seems those agreements were rubbished on the basis of who won the presidency. Because you would have expected the arrangement that was obtained at the time to obtain for a certain period, given the fact that it was based on law and also good faith by the people who appended their signatures. It therefore means that the public was hoodwinked, because this was an election that was closely contested and the two sides were polarized. And therefore in some areas, if you are seen to be anti-Azimio or anti-UDA, you stood no chance. But there are some people who signed in as Azimio, and immediately they got into positions of leadership. They quickly moved across to Kenya Kwanza at the behest of the president. So these are some of the things that I consider really lack of political hygiene, and we still need a lot of social re-engineering for us to accept that any political side that you stand in is not criminal, because it is provided by the law and the constitution. And therefore you would have expected people to respect, at least for the time being, the positions that they took on the eve of elections and the arrangements that they had at that particular time. Notwithstanding that, of course, the ruling of the Speaker takes the day, but the truth of the matter is that technically, and I'm baffled, a senior lawyer like Mheshimiwa Sholei tells us that the numbers, it was no-brainer. You know, it is really an insult to our intelligence for us to say there's no-brainer when we knew the numbers of Azimio when it comes to National Assembly were higher than that of Kenya Kwanza. And therefore, people shifting immediately after elections really should not have been something that the Speaker should have captured if he was actually neutral, the way he ought to be, having been elected the Speaker.
So from your assessment, you think that particular decision was not Solomonic of...
It was not Solomonic, it was actually partial. And of course, when she says no-brainer, I agree. We almost knew that Wetangula was going to rule in favor of Kenya Kwanza. Otherwise, UDM that moved almost immediately after election, before even the president was sworn in, belonged to Azimio and many other individuals.
But technically, you ask a very critical question, I think, even when Kibali Shongo was on the floor of the House. You know, Azimio as it is, what is, with the political registrar, is the fact that Azimio is a coalition party.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And you presented a presidential candidate in the name of Right Honorable Raila Odinga.
Yes.
In terms of now in-house, where do you have any members? Because it is only the presidential candidate, Raila Odinga, that was presented as, you know, the candidate for that particular election. But for this other position, there is no one in the House. And since he was also defeated on the ground, there's no representation of Azimio in the House as it is.
But I think I can assist you with that.
No, let him just finish first of all.
Yeah. What's your sister?
Is that a question also, just to pick on what I'm asking? Okay.
Yeah, I think if you look, when I say no-brainer, I meant if looking into the facts and reading the law, it was clear from the onset that that was the only ruling that could possibly have been made. And even if we start on the first, I think Article 108 of the Constitution, which says the leader of majority shall come from the largest political party or coalition of political parties. Coalition of political parties, which means plural, several parties. Azimio is one political party. It is called Azimio Coalition Party. That was the contention. And remember, the introduction of something called a coalition political party, which is one, it was an introduction made when the new amendment to the Political Parties Act was made. So even when that is looked into, the numbers still speak for themselves, because if you look at the evidence that was presented, and I think which was reviewed by the Speaker as he's read his ruling, he says, I have received a letter, attached to it the minutes of the parliamentary group meeting and signed by individual persons belonging to the coalition called Kenya Kwanza, who come from different parties. So even if you just talk about UDM alone, then even if they were not present, still the numbers would still have been higher. And in any case, when they say they are the largest party is Azimio. Azimio doesn't have a single member in the House. They only fielded presidential candidates. So I think at the end of the day, and I remember if you notice during the proceedings, the document that was presented, because if you want to prove, you have to say you're the largest political party or coalition of political parties, how then do you confirm that fact? You confirm it by presenting documentation to support the fact.
Thank you.
And the challenge was they did not even present documentation to support that fact, save for a letter that was an unauthenticated that they presented, but they did not present the numbers. So imagine when the others give you a list of real members of parliament who belong to the Kenya Kwanza coalition and attached it together with minutes, then you know it's real numbers. But when the other side doesn't bring any numbers, even if you are before a court of law, you stand no chance.
Right. Bashimo hadn't finished. I think he was interrupted.
I think first and foremost, when you have the operative word is coalition. The moment you have coalition, it denotes parties coming together, and I think this is just a matter of interpretation and semantics. Everybody knows the reality is that there is Kenya Kwanza and the parties associated with it, whether it is one party or many parties, and everybody knows Azimio, One Kenya, and the associated parties. So I think that interpretation was skewed to fit the interpretation of the day and to justify the stealing of elected members of Kenya, the Azimio, One Kenya Alliance. So it's understood what has happened, and some people have changed their mind at the last minute. Whether it is honorable or dishonorable is a clear case. I am very sure if it is, Azimio, One Kenya, which won the elections, quite a number of other people who are not very well decided would have also shifted, and they would have had the numbers. So the sort of thinking we have in Kenya is what principle are we presenting, and what is the coalitions or opposition in Kenya. It is in the mouth of Kenyans, but I think deep in the heart of Kenyans, they are really one-party system minded. Everybody wants to be where the government is, but it's also a matter of principle and the proper interpretation without bias. I believe there are quite a number of errors and technicalities relied on that particular ruling, but that's not what we really want to drill in. The test is it honorable enough, and whatever has happened, is it within the law? And even if an interpretation is presented, can it be challenged? I believe with time that will change, and Kenyans will be more honorable other than try to skew a judgment, which is truly dishonest.
So have you tested?
And the truth of the matter is there was a lot of stealing, and the people were purchased to be able to shift their thinking and enticed with the goodies, which probably will not exist. But a decision has been made, and only time will tell. That problem started even when the law was being made. That interpretation, what is a coalition party and what is just a coalition? All of them are parties. At the end of the day, is a coalition party, but consisting of smaller parties, within that particular coalition. So the word is coalition.
All right. So we head back to the Jubilee Alliance Party, and then finally it collapsed. All the parties, save for one, the 13th parties. We had 13 parties actually collapsing with the Jubilee Alliance Party, isn't it? Maura. Yeah. So we're in the same scenario like in 2013.
No, but there's a desire to have at least one strong party. And I'm sure also Azimio may also really become the party that they are on paper. I am not very sure that still the chairman of the council is the president, the retired president, Uhuru Kenyatta. But certainly I'm finding it very interesting, because it is good for a country to move into two strong party system, because it makes our politics predictable. And I hope that can be the decision going forward. Only that then, of course, these small political parties are used to negotiate for power by their founders. I find it very interesting for Dan Manzo to say that members of parliament can be stolen. Really, it's a freedom of association as per Article 38 of the Constitution, because UDM willingly said that they were coerced into Azimio and that they signed the final paper. And so they didn't know the details of the agreement. And many secretary generals really complained during that time. It is not that they are complaining now, that they didn't know about the details of the Azimio coalition agreement. So I think, the ruling has already been made. Now it is a question of the parties constituting the various committees through the Committee on Selection. Of course, the first one is the most critical one is Committee on Appointment, because we are taking too long to constitute the government. I think it's taking a bit too long because by now I think things should be well set up. In 2013, the Jubilee administration, within 36 days, everything was set up. So I think that there's a very elongated process that needs to be concluded. I think there are more positions for the opposition now, the minority, because there are so many PICs, which I think, in my humble submission, should be led by them out of the 36 or so committees. And also, now that there are 6 members of the Speaker's panel, Deputy Speaker is here, I think there is a case for a second chamber for the National Assembly. I don't need a Senate, a second chamber, because there will be so much throughput that I don't know how it will be canvassed. I remember my experience in the National Assembly. I would put in a motion in February, and I would only have a occasion to debate it in October. It is very difficult to canvass a private member's bill or a private issue, apart from government-sponsored or the minority-sponsored. So that will be a challenge. With about 36 committees, it will be a very big challenge to push through the agenda. Of course, it remains to be seen, the BAL, something that may not be discussed here very well. What will be the advantage of the majority side in terms of the committee constitution, the constitution of the committees? Will it be 2 or 3 members? So then that means quorum will be if it is razor thin, it benefits the members, because out of that haggling, they are able to up their stakes. I've been in that parliament, I know better. So what happens then is, how do we make sure that, the agenda of government passes? So the majority side must really make sure that they have quorum. And also, the whips, Osoro and my friend Naomi Wako, we'll have a lot of work to do, believe you me, to make sure that the members are present. Of course, even the issue of being in too many other committees, that means also if you have in this, you are in this and that other one. So there will be a lot of balancing. However, as I have said this before, after about 6 months, there will be a loosening up of these coalitions. And I can tell you, the BAL will have more people joining the winning side, because it's natural. It's not one party state mentality done. It's just people want to join the winning side, because failure is an orphan and success has many fathers. But also, I don't know what Dan is thinking, Dan Maanzo, because if Raila Odinga has already started saying he's going to run in 2027 at 83 years, where is Kalonzo Musyoka? Can't he also join the winning side?
You're profiling the hand for, yes, of welcome to Kalonzo Musyoka. We're going to take a short break right now. When we circle back, I think we want to get granular with the CDF fund as it is, because we have already 2 legislators who have moved 2 amendment bills right now on the floor of the House. That it is Gishumu and also Mr. Mule, Robert Gishumu and Stephen Mule so far. And they want the constitution amendment, they want the constitution to be amended so that they can anchor the CDF on 3 bills as it is right now. If I may just talk about them. First is the Economic Stimulus Empowerment Fund, so that it can be entrenched in the constitution. Also, we have the Senators Oversight Fund, and also the National Affirmative, that is the National Government Affirmative Action Fund, NGAF, that also is meant to steamroll the empowerment of the affairs of women in the counties so far. We shall be looking at this primarily, why this particular fund should be